It's finally here, people. We've waffled for weeks and weeks and weeks. I miss football. I can't wait to the Premier League back. I can't wait to see my team play. It doesn't matter what team you support. I think everybody has said that. Now, whether the time comes and according to form, you still believe that in a month or so, who cares? But we love this game of football. And it's a curtain raiser for Arsenal. Courtesy of Manchester United's inability to beat Manchester City at Wembley, we are in the FA Cup Community Shield, or English Super Cup as I refer it to as. If we win, it's amazing. If we lose, it's not that deep. Now, for me, it's a game against Manchester City. This is a team that definitely, where Pep Guardiola era is concerned, if you want to win major ambitions and major honors, you need to be able to defeat them. You need to be able to come out of that game, whether you've won, lost, or drawn, seeing the things you've done good and make it to a level of being great, and seeing the areas of improvement. You don't get the fine margins against City. Things they let you get away with, you can't get. Other teams let you get away with, they don't. They can kill you from all over the field with their quality of players, with the system, with the mad scientists of Pep Guardiola. They've got goals all over the field. They're very good defensively, extremely experienced, extremely street smart. Again, Manchester City are a joy to watch on the ball, but I also feel, obviously, we watch football for what people do on the ball. But I personally feel that robs you, the true things in football for me, I believe, is off the ball. And off the ball, very few teams are better than Manchester City in the midfield third, in the defensive third, in the attacking third, in terms of a well-engined unit. You always hear me say our first attacker is Ramsdale, our first defender is Gabriel Jesus. Where do you think that comes from with what Pep Guardiola has done in the game, and specifically in the Premier League? It's the curtain raiser. Pardon me, we're at Wembley. It's the time to stand up to be counted. Whether you think the Community Shield is the greatest of honours, who knows? We're in it to win it. Nobody wants to lose it. You go back a few weeks, Grealish was saying, I've been in 2 finals, I've not won one. I want to win it. This is the curtain raiser, and it's all about momentum. You compare our preseason from last year to this year. Obviously, I would say last year was a bit better, but it's been good. It's been one where there's several areas of improvement. You look at the goals conceded against Bayern Munich and Manchester United, for example, and definitely the one against Monaco, and actually on the transition, individual errors, defending on the transitions, counter-attacks, set pieces, dead ball scenarios. These have been things Arsenal have needed to improve last year, and preseason has highlighted that. Now, you're not going to go off for a couple of weeks and just look a lot better. It's about building blocks. Now we're going to hell. Now we're going to war. Now we're in the belly of the beast. We're in hell trying to find heaven. Manchester City don't care about the romance of Arsenal, this beautiful football club, being reminded courtesy of Arteta and the players how beautiful it is. They don't care about the fact that from the fans to the players to all aspects, it's finally fun times. Everyone's singing from the same hymn sheet. They don't give a flying monkeys about the fact that we ain't won a major honor in the Emirates era, really. And I want that to change. This game is a statement. It's very important. It's of the utmost importance. I want to see courage. I want to see desire. I want to see belief. I want to see us push to the limits. If you lose, so what? It's a game of football. It's not like you're a doctor and you've made a mistake. These are the games that we have aspired to move into. Everything Mikel Arteta has geared this team in is to be a team that's going to be in finals of competitions, really. And 9 times out of 10, where England's concerned, if you're fighting for the Prem or any major honour, you can expect to play Manchester City on the way. If we make a mistake, so what? If we concede, so what? It's a game for the mental aspects. While I think Arsenal's mentality has improved, there's been times we've showed an inability to cope with that. I believe Southampton at home. I believe against West Ham. I believe at a certain point at Anfield. I definitely believe the game at the Etihad, we didn't believe. But ultimately, there's been games we've been full of belief. Man United at home, we didn't win. Manchester City at home, Liverpool at home, the 2 North London derbies, the 2 games against Chelsea. There's been many a game. Bournemouth, I know Bournemouth respectfully isn't of the same standard to these clubs, but we was in moments where in previous years, previous Arsenal players would have looked for other players to be scapegoats. They wouldn't have stood up to be counted. This game is a game for us to learn a lot about us. This game is a sobering reminder, whether we win, lose or draw, that we're not as bad as we think we are. We might not be as good as we think we are. There's a lot of question marks going into this game. Who plays left back? Is Zinchenko fit for one, which I doubt? Does Kirill, who's shown his ability in that inverted role in pre-season, do you go with Tomiyasu? As he's shown, he can play left back and perform there. Do you go with Timber, which I'm leading to, probably one of the best players at Arsenal during this pre-season leg of the season? And to be honest, out of the new signings, Rice looks good. Havertz looks like he's improving with every game. Timber's probably been the one that's hit the ground running the most. Who plays in midfield? Do you go for what I believe long-term Arteta is aspiring to have, a 6 and 2 rotated 8 in Martin Odegaard, Havertz and Declan Rice? Or do you go for, Odegaard, the boy wonder, the captain, the class Weasian, lovely way to pass, the pressing Mitro, and the physicality as of Rice and Partey, on top of them obviously being good with a ball at their feet. I'd probably lean towards Rice, Partey, and Odegaard. But nonetheless, who plays in midfield? Who plays up front? Do you go with Trossard in the false nine? Shoney can perform there well, rotates in and out with Martinelli. Do you go with Eddie Nketiah? Apologies, people. No do-overs. Who is the most, natural sort of selection where Jesus is concerned? And say what you want about Eddie. Do I believe Eddie's a man that can produce magic moments? Do I think he's a man that can get us out of trouble? Do I think he's a man that can grab us 20 plus goals? No. Is he someone I would want to rely on going into this game? Is he someone I would necessarily want to rely on if Jesus is injured? Of course not, with the greatest of respect. But I do think Eddie Nketiah is disrespected within the fan base, maybe because we've been spoiled as Arsenal fans with strikers. I think he's very competent in that role, and he's the most natural sort of striker. And I do think on one hand, I do want to play a rotating nine of Martinelli and Trossard. Obviously, Trossard will start up there. Martinelli and him would swap flanks. I do feel to go with an organic upfront option in terms of Eddie Nketiah. You can't even rule out Kai Havertz, while I don't think we'll see that. I also think in Trossard's defense, he's more likely to be what Arteta has called the subs in, an impactor, than Eddie Nketiah. Eddie Nketiah will have to drop. He'll have to occupy the centre halves, but he'd have to drop deep. Trossard would have to do the same as well. But Trossard's more likely to drop deep and be effective. And, the midfield battle is crucial. If Trossard drops and people recognise, mainly Saka and Martinelli, and they attack the space that is vacated or any gaps between the back three or back five, whatever Pep Guardiola deploys, there's something there. What I would say is I'm happy I'm not Mikel Arteta. What I would say is, in an ideal world, of course, I'd like to win this trophy. I would like a fast start for our Premier League. I feel a bit nervous, if I'm honest, to have no Jesus, to have no Zinchenko. I know he's not a vital player in Arsenal's team, but not for Mikel Arteta to not have the option of someone like Reece Nelson. In terms of what I expect from Man City, as we know, technical ability, wonderful players, very good game management, very individually quality and collectively have a lot of quality, can kill you in two passes all over the field. Wonderfully gifted players. If they smell blood, they're like sharks. They will pounce and they will annihilate their prey. I expect them to have the lion's share of possession and players operating in the pockets. I expect Pep to keep chopping and changing his system as the game goes on. They will have chances. They might take them, but we will get chances as well, and we have to take them. As much as it's a tactical battle, and it's a fantastic one, in the apprentice against the master and Mikel Arteta and Pep, this is one for the players. The mentality, the belief, the psychological aspects of this game are of the utmost importance. How I believe we beat them, they're human just like us. Belief. As great as they are, they haven't won every game available of every possible game last season, even though they done the treble. I'm not saying that to criticize them, because you can't criticize Pep Guardiola City, but they're human just like us. They bleed just like us. If we don't believe going into that game that we can win, I don't know. And a bit like the game at the Etihad, I believe it was lost in the tunnel. You can go back to my watch along at them times and see it, people. How we can beat them, as I said, belief. Take your chances, assert yourself on the ball. If you get caught in possession, if you misplace a pass, that happens in football. Go again. We need to be brave. It's all fun and games being a great team that plays out from the back, having wonderful, technically gifted footballers. When teams give you time and space, City are not going to do that. They can press you aggressively. Equally, they could lure you into a false sense of security where they'll let you have the ball in certain areas and then pounce again off the ball, because City might have the ball on the right-hand side, but the goal that they're about to score is coming from the left-hand side. So again, communication is of the utmost importance. We need movement off the ball. I need someone like Martin Odegaard to make that late run into the box on the edge of the area. Equally, I need Martinelli and Saka to attack the space. I need my strikers and, my four attackers in that, the two wingers, the 10 and the striker. I need them to support each other. I need players to take their games up individually a bit more. I need everybody that wants to carry this game on their back and make the difference do a bit more in the game like this. If we make a mistake, go again. Will City score? Probably. Would I like to do a little 1-0, 2-0 thing? Go home, everyone's happy as Larry? Of course, people. At times, we might even have to go long with Ramsdale, really. I don't think that's necessarily a consistent option because of how City play, but at times we are going to struggle to get out. In terms of key battles, the big one will probably be Kyle Walker against Martinelli. Walker's done well against Mbappe and Vinicius, and if you do well against Kyle Walker, you've had a good game. Martinelli for me is the guy that we need to feed in this game, but we can't do that 90 times across a 90-minute game. It does not make sense. There's going to be midfield runners from both teams. Obviously, the centre backs against that robot in Haaland's another one. Whoever, and again, a big talking point would be who plays up front. Is it Trossard? Is it Eddie Nketiah? Or is it something else? Really and truly, link up play between the front men for me is of the utmost importance. People, I want to hit the ground running in the Premier League. I want 9 to 12 points from the first available as a minimum, people. And I think it starts on Sunday. I'm tired of losing to Manchester City. There's no shame in losing to Manchester City, but it's how you lose to Manchester City. If we are at our absolute maximum and it's not quite enough and they've done a moment of magic and madness, fair enough. Don't let it be because of individual mistakes, because we've not ended the game as well as we started, because we've not started the game well, because we're not following runners, because we're not heeding the warnings. Again, the transition, I'm sure Pep would have been looking. Some would think this is probably the best time to play City because it is pre-season. They have lost some players, they have lost some coaching staff, and they brought one in actually at the time of making this vid. But it's Manchester City. Pep, there's always a method to his madness. You think he's letting Mahrez, Gundogan, all these guys leave after winning a treble if he's not going to do an absolute mad thing? Let it not be then, really. Let's stand up to be counted. As I said, they're just like us. They're human just like us. Of course, it's easier said than done. And it's easy for me to sit here and say this. But this is what we need to do if we want to go and win the game, people. So, yeah, people, we need to go and do the thing. As you would have seen throughout this video, there's a bunch of tactical little viewpoints I've gone through. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and let me know your own thoughts on what you expect from this game.
Now, when you look at Arsenal versus Manchester City, there's nothing new under the sun. There's nothing new on the script. Now, we know against Manchester City, they're probably going to have the lion's share of possession. They're probably going to dominate possession in that proceedings. And when you look at a side of Manchester City's caliber and what they're about, Pep Guardiola always says it, you watch the ball, you're watching half of the game. It's the players out of possession. As you know, if I take the ball off Ramsdale for a second and I give it to Edison, City have the capacity and the scope and the ability to cut you open in 2 passes or less than that. They have the ability to go long. As you know, Edison in line with the modern goalkeeper can go long, can pick out passes that some number 10s can't do really. Kyle Walker probably won't overlap too much, but you have the capacity of the fullbacks to overlap. Obviously, you've got the target man in Haaland. It could be knocked up to him and he could bring other players into play, the more diminutive and creative players. But it's off the ball. If plays here with Bernardo Silva, for example, Benjamin White, for example, can't get caught watching Grealish because he can go in, he can go inside, he can go out to in, he can go in to out. And there's a variety of players. Now, in this dynamic, vaguely, this is kind of what I expect the game to look like in real time. Akanji, if they assuming they play a back 3, and I don't know, Ake could be playing, but you'd imagine Akanji goes out there to try and deal with Saka. Martinelli against Kyle Walker is probably the key battle, and again, Martinelli's adding more gears to his game. Declan Rice will have to make that forward Xhaka kind of run like he showed against Monaco. Martinelli will have to make darting runs inside and naturally take him on. Martinelli could be an outlet, but again, throughout a 90-minute game, you can't expect Martinelli to just dance past players. And off topic, if he is successful in dancing past Walker, we need link-up play. We need link-up play from all our attacking 3 or 4 if you include Martin Odegaard, people. And what I would like to see, if we just assume everybody's in Manchester City's box, for example, in fact, not everybody, but let's just say Eddie's occupied with Diaz, Saka could make that late run, but let's say Akanji's on him. Equally, let's say Walker is occupied with Martinelli. I also think, as much as I need these lot to do things, just by watching City and what I know of Manchester City, one avenue could be late runs. Something Martin Odegaard has shown, he'll shoot from outside the area. So that is something to be wary of. But as I said, let's put everyone back into position for a second of what I expect in real time. And to be honest, off topic, or staying on the topic because it is Manchester City Arsenal, a key battle is Eddie and Nketiah. I would start Eddie purely because I think Trossard is more of an impact player off the bench. Not saying Eddie and Nketiah hasn't done that or can't be. And I just think we need anything close to a traditional striker. Now, naturally, if the game's like this with Stones and, the great system that Pep Guardiola has employed, Eddie Nketiah is probably going to be starved of possession for large proceedings of the game. Naturally, he's going to have to drop deep and offer himself as an outlet, which once again, you want the Sakas of this world or Martinelli to make those darting runs. Do you go with Trossard, pretending it says Trossard's number and not Eddie? Do you go with Trossard or Martinelli purely because when they've played false 9, they'll switch? And I'm happy I'm not Mikel Arteta Arteta, do you go with someone who's an out-and-out striker to occupy the centre halves, even though it's essentially 3 against 1 if Akanji inverts? Or do you have the belief of, you can't mark a moving target and rely on the interchangingness of of Trossard, apologies, and Martinelli to go with Saka being a nuisance and the late runs of Odegaard, really? It's going to be an interesting dynamic. But as I said, this is kind of how I expect it in real time to kind of play out. You'd have Rodri there. Haaland's going to be occupied by our centre halves. Benjamin White's going to have a tough time because he is going to have to overlap and invert and provide support to Saka. But equally, he's going to have to think about Jack Grealish and the threat that's there. What I want to see is us being brave in possession. You will lose possession. You will have nervy moments with Manchester City, but we've got to back ourselves. It's all fun and games being a great ball playing side when you have time and space. City don't do that, and it's off the ball that makes the difference. Bernardo Silva will occupy the channels. Obviously, there's no Gundogan, but Kovacic will show. Rodri's the safety net, and they've got 3 great defenders. Kyle Walker can obviously overlap and do that pacey stuff. And I believe, in terms of being a fullback, at the aspect of nullifying a winger and 1v1, Kyle Walker's one of the best at it. Vinicius Jr., one of the best left wingers in the world, has said that. He done well against Mbappe. Martinelli's going to have his work cut out. Declan Rice as well. If you're playing in that slightly more advanced role, we need you to muck in and help defend. It's a day for the pivot men, really. And that's probably why I would personally go with Rice, Partey, and Odegaard. I think it has the combination of, as well as me just thinking that's our best midfield trio or pivot where Rice and Partey are concerned, I just feel it's got the right dynamism. I think it's got the right tenacity. I think it's got the right physicality. And I think, it's got the right blend. Partey is very good on the ball. Rice is very good on the ball. And we'll see more layers to that as his career at Arsenal progresses. Clearly, Martin Odegaard is paid to do that. And I do need to see him link up well on the right-hand side. And I do expect Manchester City to kill our passing lanes. Now, I've kind of moved everything about people, so it's a bit difficult for me to continue where I was at. But, White sometimes going to have to knock it into the channels for Saka. Sometimes Saka might have to go home. Saliba is going to gallop forward. Sometimes he might have to play the simple pass to Partey and play a 1-2. Sometimes you might just have to skip it out and go Martinelli. Timber, who I expect to play fullback, and I actually would, because it's like having another midfielder is going to invert. He might have to go home. We might have to skip Rice out and go to Martinelli. Eddie might have to hold it and go the way home. So it's the passing lanes, essentially, folks, where I'm looking at and thinking to myself, City are going to block them off, really. And that's where Timber's going to have his work cut out, because if Bernardo goes out there, you're going to have to follow him. Rice is going to have to drop into the channel, and he's going to have to communicate with Partey. Off the ball is what is going to make or break us against City. We are going to get chances, but you need to take them. As I said, I expect City to have high amount of possession. I expect them to create nervy moments and things, but we've got to show for the ball. As you know, when Ramsdale typically has the ball, White naturally will make an option. Saliba and Gabriel make an option. Timber might go inside and show for it, as you saw with what Zinchenko used to do last season, and then there's that pass into him and we progress where we progress. Naturally, you might need him to just, in terms of a build-up play, be a normal traditional fullback, and then let Partey and or Declan Rice, Partey might get it, or you might skip it out and go with him. Again, City are very good off the ball, really, and naturally they will shuffle over. As I said, they've got Stones, Rodri, Ake/Akanji, Walker, Diaz, great 1v1, so they'll block the passing lanes. But this is where we need to be brave and expansive and attack the space. Kanji isn't going to gallop forward too many times, and that gives Grealish the freedom. Grealish isn't really interested in holding the touchline. He will when demanded, because he's an intelligent footballer and he knows about variety in his game, but naturally he'll probably hug the half channel. Now, again, there's several players that could play. We all know about Kevin De Bruyne's ability. We don't need a graph to show any of that. But this is kind of, initially, this is kind of how I expect it to play out naturally, folks. If we put everybody back in somewhat positions, if I can remember everything I actually did, I expect it to kind of be a back three like that. I expect Stones to provide a somewhat additional support to Walker out there. I expect them to attempt to isolate Eddie and Nketiah, or just the way City play and the natural dynamics of the game. You expect that's kind of how it's going to play out, really and truly. Obviously, Haaland is going to be occupied there. Rice is going to have to be narrow. I want to see Timber inverting and probably Bernardo in that. And as we know, for Mikel Arteta, Pep Guardiola has the capacity and the ability to change things in an aspect. We remember one of the games last season, he started Bernardo Silva left back, he then put him right back. He started left back and then they then put him right wing, and we couldn't cope with it, really. So I think it's The midfield battle is imperative. How we mark off the ball is imperative. How we take our chances, how we support, whether it's Trossard or Eddie Nketiah. And as I said, I'm a bit in two minds, because if you go with Trossard and Martinelli, you know, they got a good relationship. Trossard's clearly a big game player and a baller, and he deserves to start. And a part of me wants to start him. And obviously they will swap positions. But I just think I kind of want Eddie to kind of fight, provide a physical kind of problem for Diaz, and then you can bring on Trossard, because I think Trossard, not saying I want to rely on the subs, but I think Trossard's more likely to impact the game. The midfield battle is key, and it's interesting to see how Mikel Arteta will line up. Does he go with Rice, Havertz and Odegaard? Does he go with Partey and Rice? You know, does Timber play right back and he goes with Kiri or Tini, or if Zinchenko's fit, or Tomiyasu? I just have a hunch it will be Timber, really, and I think Timber deserves to start, really. I think you got to go White and Timber, especially in Zinchenko's absence. Clearly, our task is going to be made that much harder, because not only have we lost Zinchenko, and what can he do, with the greatest of respect to Timber, you know, and Timber might even find himself at right back if Zinchenko somehow miraculously fit. We're losing Jesus and what Jesus gives us, but injuries happen. We need to stand up to be counted. The main thing is that we give it our all. If we lose to the better team, there's no shame in losing to Manchester City. They've won the treble. They've got the villain in Pep Guardiola. They're a fantastic club. They're the envy of club football. There's no shame. But let it be, because, you know, Kevin De Bruyne did something out of this world. Haaland and Cole did it out of this world. Something you couldn't account for. A moment of magic. Don't let it be because we haven't followed runners. We switched off, individual mistakes, not believing in ourselves. Things that, you know, you look at the last 3 games against Manchester City, could be the case. If I'm honest with you, I think the best game we played against Manchester City is actually when Arteta rotated the side in the FA Cup, in which, you know, Ake and Grealish scored down the left-hand side because Saka and Tomiyasu switched off, as I said at the start, following runners. I think at the Etihad we didn't believe. I think in the last 2 games, in the last previous seasons, we played them at the Emirates. It's been close. It's been definitely been a good tactical battle between Mikel Arteta and Pep Guardiola, and I think it has been a good battle. But fundamentally, we've not got those fine margins on our favour, and we've lost the game, really. City have had our number, and it's about time we win. Now, whether we win, lose or draw, there's always something positive and negative to take away from the game. Regardless, our season is here, our season has started, and it's imperative we stand up to be counted. So yeah, and it all depends, because Pep could just play a normal back 4. As you've seen, he's played a number of different kind of roles. People, again, Ake wouldn't be the striker. I was just messing about, but you've seen them play a 3-2-4-1 sort of thing. You've also seen variations of that. You've seen them go 2 up front if Alvarez is going to play and things. So there's many different things. For me, my starting 11, assuming, for me as a fan, what I know of the fitness levels of players, I would go Timber left back, Gabriel Saliba, White, Rice, Partey, Odegaard, Saka, Martinelli, and obviously that is not Martinelli's number as well. Forgive me, folks. Again,